Hi, in this video, I will review Chapter 8 of Clean Code by Robert Martin. This chapter is all about how we can use third-party software, third-party systems and infrastructure and code in a pretty quick way and in a pretty clean way. We'll also cover some of the tips on quickly migrating and learning about the third-party software systems. Today, there are many great open source software libraries and infrastructures that are available. It is best for us to write our application code in such a way that we can easily use this third-party software. On the mobile stack, there are multiple options available based on the operating system. Same for the front-end stack, AngularJS, React, Backbone, Ember.js, backend APIs and backend API systems and cloud systems, Azure, Amazon Web Services, Node.js, MySQL, Cassandra, etc. So there are a lot of these third-party software systems available. And so it becomes very important for us as application developers to write our application codes in each of these layers such that it is very easy for us to upgrade from one front-end system to the second, from one back-end system to the second. And so we'd want to write our software that it's easy to upgrade and leverage new functionality, because even simple migration, even a simple upgrade has a lot of new functionality that is available. Migration is an altogether different task, which is a larger task. We also want it to be very easy for us to migrate to an entirely new open source stacks and infrastructures without really paying for a lot of developmental cost, right? This is the new reality. Software systems, libraries, and infrastructures are changing quite rapidly. We need to be able to write software that allows us to cleanly migrate and easily, regularly upgrade. So let's see how this chapter provides some of the tips on how to do it. Let's say you're using Amazon AWS. The first biggest tip is writing wrapper APIs. And so let's say your application code uses Amazon Web Services. Most likely, you'd only be using a small subset of the third-party APIs in Amazon. The first biggest tip, as in this slide, is to write wrapper APIs. The wrapper APIs help encapsulate and hide a lot of information so that you don't expose huge set of APIs that your application code may not want to use. And so it can also help with making sure that the functionality that you don't want is also hidden. So you can only expose a subset, because most likely you don't need a whole set. Doing this provides a lot of benefits. When you want to test for an upgrade, or you want to test if the upgrade will actually work, it'll be easier. At the same time, when your systems change, the backend systems change, so only wrapper APIs change. So the application code remains the same. So let's look into detail a little bit more, right? So testing is easier because the real API will do real things, but you'd want to probably test those APIs independent of doing the real things. Let's say your APIs return different data based on the country you are in. It works on bulk of data, like millions of records, but you don't want to run on millions of records for your test, and you don't want to make any real change. And so that's where, if you have wrapper APIs and wrapper tests, then testing becomes easier, upgrade becomes easier, and the application code remains decoupled. Let's go into detail of this example. Let's say you want to migrate from AWS and you're using wrapper APIs to Azure, right? So the first thing you do is very quickly write tests to learn about Azure. Best case would be you would have had a test case APIs for Amazon Web Services that you're using. And what if you could run those tests on Azure? You could quickly know what are the behavioral differences on Azure. So incrementally writing tests, if you don't have the test suite, is probably another second biggest tip in this chapter, is to write tests to quickly learn, quickly explore, find out differences, and also have tests that actually test for migration. So the first step would be to write test APIs for the migration. Once you know that it's working, You could change the wrapper APIs to, in a controlled fashion, move from AWS to Azure. So those are the two big tips: writing wrapper APIs and quickly writing tests that you can maintain over time for migration, and learning quickly new software systems, new backend systems, new infrastructure systems within a short period of time by writing tests. So those were the two big tips: wrapper APIs and writing tests for learning. The third tip is you might find that there might be some incompatible interfaces, like let's say inner functionality of Amazon, AWS, and Azure is still the same, but the interface is different. That's where an adapter pattern could be useful. In our real life, we use adapters that change from one set of interface to the second set of interface based on where we are in the country. Similarly, if you're moving from AWS to Azure, you might find that there are some interface differences. That's where adapter patterns can be useful. So an adapter pattern helps two incompatible interfaces whose inner functionality is still the same to work together. The adapter design pattern achieves this by converting the interface of one class into the interface expected by the clients. So let's look at this example a little bit more on how it works. So using composition, adapter has an instance of the adaptee. Let's say in this case this is Azure, and this is the current cloud interface that your application code is used to. Once it has an instance of the adaptee, it can call and modify the adaptee methods. So in this case, the client always invokes the target interface. Adapter has an object of the adaptee using composition, and all requests are delegated to the adaptee by the adapter. So your application code remains unchanged. So in your wrapper APIs, you might end up using adapter patterns a lot to still keep your client code clean. So that's the high-level summary. 3 big things from this chapter: a case for writing tests to quickly learn new software systems, a case for writing code in such a way that it's easy to migrate and upgrade by using wrapper APIs and using wrapper test APIs, and using adapter patterns where we see that there's interface differences. Again, credit goes to the author, Robert Martin. Great book. Thanks for inspiring me to get a little bit more context on some of these topics. If you have questions or comments on this topic, or want to share some more of your own thoughts deeply, add them in the comment section below. Thank you.